All right. Welcome, everybody. We have another AMA Wednesday. We have quite a lot of questions today, which is very exciting to talk about. Maybe something before we get into the questions. We have the 31st of March. That means we have about 3 weeks until Chrysalis happens, until the migration starts. So I think we should really start thinking about what we are going to do to create up more excitement and also to build up the momentum. I think we should really think about what we can also do together as a community. Maybe we can do an infamous stress test as we did in the previous like version 1 of Chrysalis. Or maybe we can think about doing some kind of event with the Firefly wallet, because I think a lot of people are missing out on the opportunity to really try out Chrysalis before it's live, and it's such an amazing experience. And so we are the foundation are gonna have a think about what we can do for that, but maybe you guys can also come up with some ideas. If you have some great ideas of what we should do, share it with us on Discord or share it on Reddit. I think it's important that we start doing something like that. And something else that I wanted to quickly mention before we jump into the questions is we're getting into summertime, right? It's nice outside. It's sunny. Many of you are also getting out of lockdown, I hope and I presume. So that also means that I think the times of doing these sessions on Wednesday, doing the AMA, and Friday, the IOTA Talk, is not going to work out for most of you. Also, maybe something interesting for you guys. What we are going to do in the IOTA Foundation as well right now is basically to not have any meetings and any calls on a Friday. So it's like no meeting Friday, so that people can actually think. And I think especially in this crazy time where all of us have to work from home, and where all of us are kind of stuck at home, it's even more important that we get some time off and get more time off to also think about the future, i.e. we want to really spend not just 2 days off, right? Not just Saturday and Sunday, but also really dedicate Friday either to getting work done or really to start thinking about some strategic efforts. Because quite honestly, the best decisions that we have made over the last few months, and also with Chrysalis and all of that, are really where we take a step back, where we're not being pressured by the market, where we're not being pressured by external forces, but where we can really just try and dedicate the free time that we have to thinking about what the future of IOTA looks like and how we're making the ecosystem bigger and better and achieve all of that faster, right? All of that is within our objectives. And I think utilizing a Friday to reflect on these important topics is really crucial, because everybody in the foundation is immersed by IOTA, and all of you probably as well, right? So we're constantly thinking and we're constantly doing. And I would also like to shift more into the thinking, to dedicate more strategy as we enter this new phase, because now we're really entering a very exciting stage with IOTA, where Chrysalis is right in front of us, and we have 3 weeks left. So that means we can start thinking about what is beyond Chrysalis, and how do we really take on some of these very interesting challenges of building up a huge ecosystem and achieving this goal of having a technology that is being adopted in the real world. So very exciting questions. And with that said, let us know which times you prefer, Monday and Thursday. So that means we would do the AMAs on Mondays. I think it's kind of a good rhythm to do it on Mondays, but we do have the quick takes on Monday. Maybe that's overlapping too much. Maybe we do Tuesday and Thursday. Let us know. You decide. I'm flexible. And these AMA sessions are pretty fun because they're also very easy to produce, I would say. There's no preparation time needed. So I think it's more about us connecting with you more closely. So yeah, let us know on Twitter which time you prefer. With that said, let's jump into the questions. By the way, quick question. Like, I don't really use Reddit that much. Is 4,500 karma a lot? Like, am I a Reddit karma whale? Can anybody answer that in the chat? I really wonder what the karma leaderboard on Reddit actually is. Let me actually think that. Look it up. Kind of a random thought. I know it's a weird flex. Well, it's like 3,500. This person is like 36 million. All right, it's not a lot. All right, fine. I'll no longer show off with my karma. By the way, doesn't the karma also kind of get you those moon coins or something? I remember there was something moons. Yeah, exactly. I have to look into that stuff because I just remember that moons, it launched on an Ethereum testnet and then it wasn't able to run Ethereum anymore. And it kind of died down. But for those of you that got a lot of karma, it probably paid off. And there's also an interesting question how to incentivize these communities with airdrops. And airdrops is like a one-off thing. But how do you incentivize them for continuous engagements? So it's pretty interesting. And also it's interesting test ground on what we can do with IOTA, right? Cool. Maybe I'll make the screen even bigger. 1 second. Cool. So let's jump in with the first question. Can weak nodes become a problem and make the network slower or more unreliable for others? Yes, they do. And we've seen that happen in real time with some of the Chrysalis testnets. Because basically what happens is when you have a node, you basically have to consider high load requirements, right? When you have a lot of transaction throughput that happens in the entire network. So you have to consider the storage capacity, and meaning your capacity to actually process all of these transactions, store them locally in your database of your node. And then also your networking capacity, right? You need to broadcast these transactions to other nodes in the network and not just drop them. And what we're seeing with what we saw with some of the, for example, Raspberry Pis that were running on the testnet is that because they were using like an SD card, they weren't able to keep up with the high load. And high load, I think, was several hundred TPS. So after a few hundred TPS, some of the nodes in the network broke down. And as you guys can guess, if some of the nodes break down, it also means that some of the connectivity points in the network break down. That means that the topology of the network also changes, right? And as such, in the worst case scenario, some of the transactions can no longer be broadcast. That means that the confirmation rate actually goes down. So what we need to make sure is that the nodes that are run in the network are really reliable and that they're not going to break down at high loads. And we do provide specifications for node requirements. I am not exactly sure what they actually are. I think it's like 4 gigabytes of RAM. Let me maybe go here. Maybe we have it written here somewhere. I think like 4 gigabytes of RAM should be sufficient, and an SSD really makes sure that you are going to be able to run a node reliably. Obviously, our goal is to reduce the requirements continuously, but we do have minimum requirements. And if you compare IOTA with other DLTs, the requirements are a lot lower when it comes to running a node reliably. So to answer your question, yes, it makes the network unreliable if nodes are falling off or not able to keep up with the network. And as such, we need to we need to make sure that most of the nodes in the network are really running at the requirements that we put out. Is sharding a big challenge or something you're confident in? So far, I haven't seen a good implementation in other cryptos. Sharding is a very difficult problem, and I can't speak on behalf of the research team because I am not the expert in sharding. I'm just talking out of my experience from seeing what's happening in the market. And sharding is a very difficult problem, also with traditional databases, right? Because you have all of these requirements that you need to meet. sense of consistency and reliability and all of that. And then you think about doing a monetary system, right, where the most important point of a DLT is that there are no double spends. Right? If you have double spends, you're no longer really a cryptocurrency because attacks can happen. And so sharding is a very difficult challenge. I remember that like Ethereum was talking about it since 2016, 2017, that they are going to do sharding, and they haven't really approached it more seriously since then, I would say. But there are some interesting approaches. We have a very concrete approach to data sharding, which should be out sometime soon after the Nectar release. But yeah, sharding is a difficult challenge. I think one thing that we're going to do moving forward is we want to bring the research team closer to you guys as well. So you can ask them questions and they can also debate some interesting topics. And I think what will be very exciting is that we do one of these AMA sessions, or we do a dedicated like research talk where they can really go in depth into sharding and these type of topics, because they're super exciting for IOTA, but they're also really exciting for the broader space. But yeah, sharding is something we're actively looking at, right? And it's a very difficult problem, obviously. What kind of network usage do you expect or target in the coming months, years? It's a very good question, and it's actually an interesting one, because just today we were talking internally about the TPS requirements of Ethereum. And if you look at it, let me actually open it. If you look at the TPS in the Ethereum network right now, did I actually show you TPS here? Right, it's around 1.3 million transactions per day that they're doing right now. So Ethereum runs at a capacity of 25 TPS. And if you think about 20 to 25 TPS and the kind of economic value that is being generated from those 20 to 25 TPS, it's huge, right? It's really all of the DeFi ecosystem is running on top of Ethereum, or most of the DeFi ecosystem is running on top of Ethereum. And with 20 to 25 TPS, they're already able to cover all of these use cases. Now, obviously, one might argue is, first of all, Ethereum runs at absolute capacity right now already. And because of that, the transaction fees are so high in Ethereum, right? I think if you do a transaction in Ethereum right now, it's about $10. Well, sorry, kind of got too excited there. But it's about $10 for one transaction. And that just really means that a large portion of other transactions are not able to go through, right? I'm not going to go to Ethereum to do micropayment use cases. So right now, the only use cases that are really covered by Ethereum are those high-value DeFi transactions, where somebody can pay the hundreds of dollars to execute like a smart or like a very complex derivative contract or something like that. Or stablecoins are also able to run on top of Ethereum because it's just economically viable for them to do these transactions there right now. And when it comes to us, we obviously don't want to limit the network like that, because we do not have transaction fees in IOTA. So the way that we look at this problem as well is, how can we really go beyond that? And how can we make sure that we don't just enable what Ethereum and others enable today, but how can we really enable some larger use cases that are even bigger, right? Where we're really thinking about large corporates and the type of TPS requirements that they have. And our objective is to be production ready with 1,000 TPS. And this is what we argued we need to be production ready. And with that, we can reliably cover many of the use cases that we're working on today. And obviously, we always want to achieve more. But I think if we have 1,000 TPS reliably off the Chrysalis and reliably off the Corticide, we should be more than happy, because with that, we can cover so many use cases. And the way that you should really think about IOTA is that what we're doing right now and what we really focus on right now is to make the base layer, i.e. layer 1, the IOTA Tangle, production ready. And with the IOTA Tangle production ready, we can really build all these exciting use cases on top that further leverage the base protocol, like smart contracts. And why that's so exciting is because with IOTA, we can actually run these smart contracts in parallel because of the DAG architecture. So that means we actually run sort of blockchains for smart contracts. We run Ethereum networks on top of the IOTA network. That means that each of these Ethereum networks that runs on top of IOTA has this 20-25 TPS limit, maybe more, because it's just utilizing the EVM and not the mining and stuff. But we can run all of these EVMs in parallel, which also means that there is a much higher throughput that is enabled through that, i.e. more use cases that can be enabled. So with 1,000 TPS, we're going to be happy. But ultimately, it's about how can we really achieve sharding, and how can we really go beyond that and make sure that IOTA is this digital infrastructure layer. So yeah, 1,000 TPS until the end of the year. With that, we're production ready. But obviously, we are working on more optimizations, and with the Nectar network out, we can also really better understand the TPS that can be achieved with it. But right now, 1,000 TPS is the goal, and what we feel comfortable with communicating. Under promise and over deliver, right? That is the motto. When will we see Hans Moog join one of your marvelous Friday sessions? PS, super initiative and keep on vlogging. I never thought about myself as a vlogger. I'm not sure if that's good, actually. It's kind of funny. Yeah, Hans is super busy with Go Shimmer right now. We should absolutely get him on one of these shows. And Hans is a fabulous human being, I would say. So it would be great to get Hans on the show right now. He's just really focused on Go Shimmer and the Nectar release. But after that, we can get him on board. We can get Angelo on the show, and also some other people, exciting people from the IOTA team. Right now, everybody's just really heads down, focused on either delivering Chrysalis or delivering the Nectar release. But we're going to do a lot more video content, so don't worry. I really like video content as well. It's very engaging, and it's actually easy to produce, I would say. Yeah. Hi, Dom. Is there any project of creating a crowd-funded permanode? I understand that it's best if users just host their own node, but when it comes to Chronicle, if you want to host it with all historic, at least 3 Scala nodes to Hornet, it can become really costly and slow down the development of projects that need access to all transactions data. Is there any project of publishing a few public nodes or crowdfunding the hosting of some permanent nodes? Excellent question. Chronicle is seeing an upgrade that should be out very soon. So we are already testing it internally. And with that, we really want to see all of you also set up your own permanodes. And we would be more than happy to help to crowdfund something like that. Maybe with the Chronicle release, we can do this as a sort of initiative as well, because I think this is super important that we have these checks and balances in place. So yeah, like I can only encourage to do that. And if you want to do that, Yardoc42, just do it, right? I think most important is sometimes you guys don't have to ask us, like just do it. And we are really here to support you. And ultimately, it is an open and permissionless ecosystem, and nothing excites us more than seeing the community build together with us. And if we can support you guys in any way, just reach out to us. I think it's very easy to get in contact with us. So yeah. All right. Hey Dom, how to access secret spec on Discord? I don't know, like it's secret, right? I guess it's an Intel joke that will be published soon. I heard that you should buy Nitro Booster to get access to secret spec. But yeah, make sure to follow the developments on Discord. Hey Dom, how will dust protection be implemented post Coordicide to handle the rising or falling price of IOTA? Eventually, one IOTA will be worth beyond $1. I think we already achieved that. Even at $10, if I wanted to send an associate $1 worth of IOTA, so 100 key IOTA, to try out IOTA, it wouldn't be possible if they didn't have already at least one IOTA in their account. This probably will get worse as the IOTA rises in dollar amount. I feel I should be able to send 50 cents of value to someone without them first having $10 in their account. A good question. Just so you know, the dust protection right now, I would classify it as temporary, because we are going to do it differently in Courtside, and the team is working on that, and hopefully we can publish more information on that soon. I also don't fully know the details myself. I think it had something to do with burning tokens or something. But it was explained on the Tangle Math channel and also on the research forum. I think this would be a great question actually for one of the research sessions. But what you can make sure, first of all, it's very easy to reduce the requirement for the minimum amount of tokens that you need to transfer, that an address needs to have. So I think that should be pretty straightforward to do on the protocol. It just requires a new node upgrade and the node's upgrading, obviously. But more importantly, you have to keep in mind is that the dust protection with Courtside will look differently. And it has this requirement in mind that it should be very easy to transfer tokens around while keeping the security in place. So it will look differently, and we're gonna share more on that soon. If you want the details right now, maybe just go on the Tangle Math channel on Discord, and then you can find it there, basically. Let me drink some water. Will ISCP contracts be interoperable with one another if they're not on the same chain? All right, I'll read your next paragraph as well. With ISCP's implementation being multiple chains on top of the Tangle, will ISCP be able to maintain some of Ethereum's more attractive features like interoperability among smart contracts? I figure you guys have assets figured out through the use of colored coins, but what if I wanted my smart contract to call someone else's smart contract's function from another chain across the Tangle? Will that be possible? Absolutely. Like, that's one of the key requirements that we had for ISCP, right? ISCP for us really also stands for this interoperability and this composability of smart contracts on top of IOTA. And what's really exciting here, and the way that this is going to work is, the way that you can think about this is that we are really leveraging the IOTA Tangle, for one, as the trust anchor, where we're securing the smart contracts so that every state, right? So every time a smart contract gets updated, i.e. a function gets executed, this state gets stored in a Tangle. So it's verifiable, it's immutable. And so we can really traverse a smart contract's history and verify the latest state. So that's really key to any smart contract, right? And the other really exciting feature is interoperability, where we are able to use IOTA as this interoperability layer between smart contract chains. The way that you can think about that is that a smart contract chain that sits on this layer 2, maybe I can actually find an image here, right? So the smart contract chain, I got one. Here. So here at the bottom, you can see the Tangle. Let me actually see if all this is fine. Yeah, at the bottom, you can actually see the Tangle. So each of these smart contracts has a unique address and has a sort of colored coin associated with it. And this is where they store the state. Now, what's very exciting about our protocol is that each of these addresses is actually, I would say, controlled by a committee, right? So a committee can actually do a transaction on the IOTA network if they make a collective decision, i.e. if they reach consensus. Usually the decision is, hey, let's update the state and let's put the state into the Tangle. Now, what you can also do is you can actually transfer data, and you can also transfer assets between these smart contract chains. So if a smart contract chain is represented here, it can also then be converted into a layer 1 asset and then be transferred to another smart contract chain. And that is what makes IOTA smart contracts so damn exciting, because we can go between layer 1 and layer 2 quite flexibly and quite easily. And this interoperability between assets has always been a key problem, even within Ethereum, right? And with ISCP, we can really approach this from a very different angle, and where IOTA is this trust anchor, where IOTA is this interoperability layer. Each smart contract sits on its own, is its own network, is its own committee, but they are able to communicate with the other smart contract chains in this entire micro or macrocosm of smart contracts. So we're definitely going to release more information on that and also show some more examples of how it's going to work. But interoperability here is really key. And within a smart contract chain, it's very simple for smart contracts to call each other, right? Because they sit within the same virtual machine. So one smart contract can easily call another smart contract within its function. But this whole interoperability between different smart contract chains, that is going to be done via the IOTA network then. One very exciting thing that we have been thinking about over the last few days is how does this actually look like in terms of representation of assets on layer 1 and layer 2? And the way that we are thinking about this more, and we're going to publish our RFC on that and are also implementing it in Shimmer, is that on layer 1, the type of digital assets that you want to represent are obviously the IOTA token, because that is the native asset of the protocol, and that is being utilized to secure the protocol with Mana, and that is the main sort of asset in this whole ecosystem. Then we also want to do NFTs, right? Metadata. We want to do typical digital assets that could also be security tokens, but it could also be whatever kind of token, reward tokens, or whatever you want to do. And then we also have something called, similarly to NFTs, where we have a sort of new type of opcode that is going to be utilized for smart contracts. And these are really the secure assets that we want to have on layer 1. Now, what's very exciting is you don't want to jump between layer 1 and layer 2 constantly, right? You don't want to transfer one asset to another, convert it to another asset on a higher chain. Instead, what you want to do is you just want to transfer the transfer ownership, right? The rights to transfer the ownership to a smart contract. Now, what you can do with that is that you can really automatically transfer assets according to a program, according to a smart contract. And that is DeFi, fundamentally, where if a certain action happens, let's say a certain price is reached or something else, another action happens, like tokens are being transferred to another owner. Like, for example, let's say there's an auction and I want to put up an NFT piece. Instead of transferring the NFT from layer 1 to the smart contract, I can just give the ownership right to the smart contract. And if the auction happens, the smart contract takes care of all of the heavy lifting by transferring the token on layer 1, the NFT, on layer 1 to the other owner. And that's what makes digital assets on IOTA so damn powerful. And it's really exciting to see how this is going to evolve. So just so you guys know, like we are updating the RC, we're updating Shimmer to reflect these changes. But this is a very exciting future for us, where we have the IOTA token, where we have aliases for smart contracts, where we have NFTs, and where we have digital assets that are able to be represented on layer 1 and can then be easily transferred around on layer 2 by any type of smart contract. So that's a very exciting future. And yeah, super nice stuff. So yeah, interoperability is key. I guess I should read this one. I'm pretty sure Dom has stated in previous AMAs that the one IOTA can easily be changed. You are right. Should I read this question as well? I never know when I should read the comments or not, because Sometimes people are having just debates there, and it's kind of awkward to read that in front of the stream where somebody's arguing with somebody else, because that happens all the time on the internet, right? But let me just read the main questions. Bitfinex was one of the earliest investors in IOTA. Have you had, and supporters of IOTA, right? Have you had any negotiations with Tether to create a stablecoin on IOTA or with other companies? Yeah, we spoke with several stablecoin providers. I think once we are ready, we're going to see stablecoins on IOTA and on ISCP. It's kind of an obvious option, I would say, and many of them want to be represented on multiple ledgers. So yeah, we are quite close with Bitfinex. They're also supporting Chrysalis. I think they should have a blog post on that also soon, similarly to Bitpanda. But stablecoins is definitely something that we want to see represented on IOTA. Yeah. I think it's only a matter of having smart contracts, because stablecoins is not just as easy as doing like a one-to-one conversion, right? Where you say, hey, this one IOTA is one USD. Instead, it really has to be done with smart contracts. So once we have smart contracts ready, this will be a lot easier to do. Hi Dom, is IOTA planning on Is IOTA planning on introducing some sort of decentralized domain name service for the Tangle, if that is even possible? Could be for wallets and nodes. Haven't really thought through. Thanks for doing these AMAs. That's a very good question. And for those of you that don't know this, sorry, I'm just typing this in. There's a very exciting project in Ethereum. It's called the Ethereum Name Service. The way that this basically works is you can think about it like a decentralized DNS, so domain name service, where you could, for example, buy dom.iota. And what this system does, it helps you to resolve your web page, your wallet address, and all of these things in a decentralized way with nobody being able to control it. And it's super exciting, I would say, also to make it more human readable and human friendly. I was very excited about this a few months ago, simply because like we were also trying to think about what are some really exciting features that we're missing in the IOTA ecosystem. And so having a domain name system DNS in IOTA would be very exciting. It's just that we do need smart contracts for that. And so we really start to reshift our focus on getting digital assets right, getting smart contracts right. And if you guys are really interested in this, I can just really highly encourage you all to start building now. I'm really going to make a bold statement. Every developer in the IOTA ecosystem that is not building something right now, I think you really are wasting your time, because there's so many opportunities that are popping up over the next few weeks. And we should really start focusing on building and building and building, right? There's so many exciting tools that we can replicate in terms of what's been achieved in other DLTs and just adjust them for IOTA. Or also complete new innovations that we can build on, like what we've done with oracles and streams, or what we're now doing with identity and all of that. So I can really encourage all of you who are developers, who are project managers, who are entrepreneurs, like let's really start focusing on building out this ecosystem together. Because we at the IOTA Foundation, we cannot do everything, and we should absolutely not do everything, because IOTA is a permissionless and open ecosystem. And we are only as valuable as our ecosystem, I would say. And so I can really encourage all of you to look more deeply into building. I know that Mark is in the chat, so if you want to get an ecosystem grant, harass Mark. I think he's the right person to speak to. Will smart contracts appear on the mainnet before core decide? It's an interesting question. What we need for smart contracts is the digital assets framework, those aliases that I was speaking about before. The quick status update there is that we are updating the RFC with these new exciting changes. We are implementing it in Go Shimmer. Then we're going to run it on the testnet there. And after it's been thoroughly tested, and also once we got more feedback from you guys, from the community, we can think about putting it onto the mainnet. because ROC is going to be the exact same, and then we can probably port over some of the implementation. But so no concrete timelines, but it will be I don't know, obviously after Chrysalis. What we also need for Corticide is something called BLS threshold signatures, because in order to do these committees, we're using some special cryptography that's called BLS. And it's, in simplest terms, the way that you can think about it is it's a signature where multiple parties come together. And if a certain number of signatures, i.e. the threshold, comes together, the signature is valid. That's why it's called threshold cryptography. So simple example is, let's say that we have 9 participants. If we define that if 5 of those signatures sign, then we reach consensus, and then the signature is valid. It's a very simple explanation. We also need to integrate those BLS threshold signatures onto the mainnet. And I think that is going to be the main bottleneck. I would say that our objective is definitely to do it as soon as possible. But what's very exciting about smart contracts and about everything that we're doing is that you don't have to wait. You no longer have to wait for these things to reach the mainnet. Because I would argue that with Goshimer and with the network and with the Nectar network, we're really getting to a stage where you can reliably build your application, let's say, for example, an NFT marketplace, knowing that the implementation of the node software, of the libraries on the mainnet will be roughly the same, right? So there's no big changes that you as an application need to do to switch from the Corticide network to the IOTA mainnet. It's rather a question of priorities. And I think our main priority should be to get Corticide done as soon as possible and to get smart contracts and digital assets production ready after Chrysalis, right? And so it's more about what we are going to do internally to prioritize these objectives and which one has more priority. We are staffing a lot on the smart contracts team. So I hope that over the next few weeks, we can make some really exciting progress there. Yeah. But yeah, it's going to come on the mainnet as soon as possible. I think digital assets will come first, and then afterwards we're going to see smart contracts. Hi, Dom. How many new employees is the IF planning to hire this year? And in which areas do you currently see the IF understaffed or not represented at all? I think right now we have about 20 to 25 job openings here. Some of them are duplicates because we're looking for more team members. We're also looking for more researchers. I would say we're always looking for more engineers to join us, simply because we have so much exciting stuff to work on, especially when it comes to smart contracts. I would say the main area where we are understaffed right now is on smart contracts. We have a team of about 6 at the moment. With some of them part-time, and they achieved some amazing success with the small team that we have there. So we are hiring a lot in smart contracts, and I really hope that we can get some more exciting people on board. We have one external team that is going to be announced soon. By the way, I need to find a new spot for this microphone. I kind of trip it over all the time. But we have an external team that we've gotten on board that is going to focus on formally verifiable smart contracts. So I think that's pretty exciting. We're going to release more on that soon. And other than that, we're just slowly growing up the team there and also increasing the scope, I would say, in terms of what we want to achieve with smart contracts. But yeah, I would say at the end of the year, we're going to have about 160, 165 people in the foundation, maybe more. Depends on how this market evolves as well, because we also need to reflect in terms of how all of this is developing. And I think what's really exciting is how many projects we're going to see in the ecosystem. And that is really where we should have our focus on. I remember in the very early days, like some of our core developers always asked, like, why would you want to build on top of an unreliable base layer? right? If you have a startup, you have all of these uncertainties that you have to worry about day in and day out. Like, am I going to have enough funding? Am I going to have success on the market? Are we able to deliver? Is my team right? And so on, right? And then on top of that, worrying about an unreliable base layer or a base layer that is going to constantly change just puts you in a much higher risk category. Now in 2021, it's a very different story on IOTA, where we have this base layer that is becoming production ready with Chrysalis, where we have digital assets that are coming out, and where we also have Coordicide right in front of us, and where the changes between Chrysalis and Coordicide are not so huge that they make it impossible to build now. Quite the contrary, right? You should start building now. And so it's a very exciting time in that regard. So I would really measure our success in terms of how many dedicated teams we're seeing in the ecosystem built on top of IOTA, because that is a true testament to our success. And we already have several of those, right? At least a dozen, excluding some of the companies that are working on this stuff and have dedicated teams. So yeah, I have high hopes for the end of the year, and I'm super excited about it. Hello, Dom. I love your work and vision. This is the vision of IOTA, right? I think you're outstanding in terms of communication, professionalism, and transparency. This is also an important point for me to want to see IOTA succeed. I have a quick little question. How much does it bother you that so often people ask about things that are months, if not years in the future? Would you rather talk about the developments that are currently being implemented or rolled out? First of all, if I draw one major comparison of IOTA between all the other teams, is that we have been through a lot and we've experienced a lot in this crypto market. So we are quite the veterans, I would say. And we understand the market. We understand how to engage with you guys, with the community, how to build up a community. The IOTA Discord is one of the largest in this entire space, and it's definitely one of the most active ones. And there was just recently somebody that actually said we're one of the more smarter communities. Let me find the post, because that was actually quite funny. He got quite a lot of memes out of that. But yeah, wait, let me find it. Oh, it was this one. I'm heavily engaged with 20 plus crypto communities. This one is by far the most intelligent on average. I think that's a big clap for all of us here. But jokes aside, right? I fully understand that if somebody joins the IOTA community, there's so many questions constantly. And because people are investing into the project, they're dedicating time on the project, they have a lot of questions. And we as a project need to lead with empathy. And we need to understand also that that we have a huge community with tens of thousands of people. So questions are going to be repeated. The only thing that we should do better is how is information being disseminated, how it's distributed in the community. That's why we're doing these AMAs, right? And also how well do we explain these things so that people also understand the way that it works? Because I think sometimes people come, all of you have very different backgrounds, right? If you are from a software development background, you understand that things take time in software development, especially in this crypto space where there's so many unknowns that you cannot factor in when you do a time estimate. And some of you don't have a background in development and are from a very different industry, so you kind of come into the space with assumptions as well. The only thing that we can do is try to explain it and explain it repeatedly. I think one of the key points to a successful project is to be transparent, like fully transparent. And this is something that we also had to learn, right? Because sometimes you just thought, oh, it's better not to release this stuff. But it just evolves over time where you start to understand most important is to be very transparent and to communicate things repeatedly so that everybody really understands where we stand and where we're heading. And yeah, like it doesn't really bother me anymore. It's part of the game, right? It's part of your job to explain things very clearly and to also set expectations right. I think the biggest comparison of IOTA 2021 to 2017 is that our expectation management is up a lot. And that is how we build trust with you to the IOTA community, and also build trust to the broader crypto community. So yeah, the more questions we get, the better, and we're happy to answer them. All right. How important is the price of IOTA tokens to you? I have the impression that for you, the technology is very important, but the market capitalization plays only a minor role. Are you annoyed by the fact that the IOTA price is so important for the community? So there's two answers that I can give you. The honest answer is, of course, it plays a role in everything that we do, because it impacts how much we can hire. It impacts the attention that we get. If IOTA was a bottom 100 project, we would not get the same level of attention and the same level of appreciation and the same level of adoption. So market cap is definitely important with the ecosystem, with the growth and the excitement around the project. We always joke, like, think about back in the day, right? 2014, 2015, 2016. That is when the space started to grow and there was many startups. The worst decision that you could have made in that time was to set up an enterprise blockchain startup, because ultimately nearly all of them failed, simply because they needed too much cash, right, to develop their product. They were building on an unreliable base layer or non-existent base layers, and they had an unproven market that wasn't really there. The only ones that really made money were the consultancies, the consultants. But when it comes to enterprise blockchain, before this year, I don't really think that enterprise blockchain was really successful, and there was no real product out there. And so the token really is also important for the adoption. And we are getting the IOTA token adopted, right? We're not just getting the IOTA protocol adopted. We firmly believe in this future of decentralization, where the IOTA token is powering this decentralized protocol and is being utilized to transfer value between machines and between humans. Obviously, the other side of this is that we do not speculate. We do not engage in shenanigans. By the way, that's a cool word, shenanigans, that other projects are doing, where they are doing shady stuff, because we firmly believe that the way to really make sure that we're building something successful is if IOTA becomes a technology that is being utilized in the real world, where it's being utilized by big companies, because that is the ultimate validation that you can get. Anybody can get 1 million users to utilize their product if you have an insanely high APY, right? If you give out free tokens, if you do airdrops. I think that is easy. The hard part is to really work with the real world, work with the industry, and convince them of your product, because ultimately the only way that a DLT technology is going to succeed is if they reduce cost, if they increase efficiency, or if they generate new revenue models for large companies. If you don't achieve any of these three, you're never going to be adopted. And so we really focus on getting IOTA adopted in the real world. So that's why the technology part for us is more important than the token part. And that's why we're putting more focus on that, because that is how we believe we are going to be adopted. And everything else will follow, right? As long as we stay focused on building, the price will follow. Any price development right now is temporary, right? It's short-lived for many of these other projects. So I really always try to keep our heads down as well in just focusing on building and getting IOTA adopted, not just as a cryptocurrency, but really as a technology. Many greetings from Dortmund. I've never been to Dortmund. How is Dortmund? I don't know. How did you come in contact with Richard Soldi and Clint Walker of the supervisory board? Yeah, they're really great human beings. Richard Soldi I met through one of our advisors, Alexander Renz, who is part of the ecosystem as well. He also participates in the community. He introduced me to Richard, and then we just met up somewhere here in Berlin. And I explained to him how IOTA works, and he was fascinated by it. And because of his background and because of his experience, he was sold on the idea and was sold on the team. And I'm grateful to have him on the team for so long. and he adds a lot of tremendous value with his expertise. Clint Walker was introduced through, Clint Walker was introduced through Dan Zimmerman. And I think we met Clint the first time also 2 years ago. And he also has like the perfect background. It's the perfect symbiosis between Richard, which has this industry background, and Clint, who has the financial banking background. So I'm really grateful for both of them. And they're playing a very active role in shaping up the governance of IOTA and helping us achieve this next chapter of the project. How does the process of the IF to find a new supervisory member look like? As I assume there will be no vacancy. Going through contacts, honestly, it's a very difficult thing to find a supervisory board member, I would say. Because if you think about the current composition, we have Richard, who has an industry background, US citizen, Clint, right, and also very much experienced in standardization, in open source and stuff like that. Then we have Clint, who has a very good expertise on the legal side, regulatory side, but obviously also financial banking. And so the thinking is right now, who else do we want to get on board? And what does this next chapter of the IOTA Foundation look like? And I really think we should get somebody from Europe or somebody from Asia, so it's not just US people on our supervisory board, and also really get somebody with more of a non-profit background, I would say. Because I think this next chapter of the IOTA Foundation is also about how can we connect better with the government, right, with NGOs, so that we do bigger projects with IOTA, right, where IOTA is being utilized in testbeds and so on. And so, yeah, we're just doing this through recommendations right now. We don't have a headhunter or something like that. We never really used headhunters for things like that. So it's really just through recommendations. So if you guys have anybody that you would want to see on the supervisory board, please tell us on Discord, so we can chat about it. We definitely want to get at least one more person on board on the supervisory board ASAP. So let's try and make that happen. What are your biggest fears, worries regarding the success of the project? I think it's good to hear some self-realized concerns from the people so close to it. Oh, that's a very good question. What are the biggest fears? Like, obviously, uncertainty is always bad for you, and we're kind of used to it, but market crashes make planning impossible. And right now you work with a certain assumption in your mind of how the future looks like. Like, we're going to release this project at that point in time, and we need this and that many people to realize it. So you do this planning, right? You want to plan ahead, and if you're being disrupted by sudden changes, it makes it more difficult to execute and to build up the project. Obviously, another big concern is always regulation, because there's always something that could happen. And I think this is like a fundamental problem of the entire space. And I think if you look at the adoption that we've gotten with PayPal, with Goldman Sachs now as well, and if you look at the kind of bills that are being proposed in the US, right, the changes in the law, is very exciting to see how it's progressing and how crypto is really seeing the adoption that it deserves. Other than that, the biggest fears are always that something happens with team members, or where we're not able to execute or not fill roles in time, or dying, right? That's always a concern, but it's not a realistic concern. We're very confident right now. We're not overconfident, but we are very confident in the strategy that we laid out, in the team that we have, right? The amazing team that we have, and in our ability to execute what was promised, especially with Courteside, and also then with smart contracts. So we are really well positioned right now. And every time you look on CoinMarketCap and another project shoots in front of you, we're not worried about that, because that is all just short-term gains that are being realized, and we're really focused on building for the next few months and even years to make sure that we grow sustainably and that we are being utilized in the real world and are being adopted in the real world. So it's really about that. So yeah, it's a good question. I have to think about that more, actually, about other fears and other concerns that we have. Yeah, but I think those are really the biggest ones, I would say. Most of them are external, if you think about it, right? It's mostly external factors that are potentially jeopardizing progress and are jeopardizing us to succeed. I think internally we are really well positioned right now, and we made some good decisions on the direction there, empowering the team more, and so in that regard, internally I'm very, very confident that we are able to deliver all of it. How is the progress and development for the Chronicle permanent going on? Can we expect a further explanation regarding the persistence of data on the Tangle? This will be of great interest for me and the broader IOTA community as well. Thank you for being so incredibly transparent on. Truth be told, I don't follow it too closely. From what I heard from Jakub today is that we are setting up the cluster ourselves right now, and the Chronicle cluster. We should be able to also onboard the community soon with the Chronicle permanent. I think once the release happens, and the release will happen hopefully before, I think it will happen before Chrysalis, maybe we can get somebody from the permanent team on to the show, because I think what's very exciting to talk about is selective permanents, because that is really the future, right? I don't want to store the entire history all the time. So they can also talk about how selective permanents are going to look like and how they're going to work. So to answer your question, we're at the final stages of releasing the Chronicle update. We are already testing it ourselves, and we should be able to release it soon, and also encourage the community to set up permanents. Hi Dom, my question: what will the governance system of IOTA be to propose and deploy updates to the network once it is fully decentralized? How does it compare to other systems like Bitcoin, Cardano, Polkadot? For example, right now, every wallet needs one IOTA to participate due to dust protection. Say IOTA gets widely adopted and one needs to lower this amount to keep using the network economically feasible. What would the process look like to lower this amount post-Coordicide? Thanks. Very good question. When it comes to governance, we're really shaping up our research around that as well, because governance is a very exciting topic. And if you think about some of the most exciting applications of smart contracts, it has to do with governance, like decentralized autonomous organizations. And we, as the IOTA Foundation, because we are a nonprofit, should really position ourselves in that realm, right? Doing research, working together with universities and top researchers and also developers in this ecosystem to come up with new governance approaches. So that is really on the application layer. When it comes to governance of the smart contract protocol, we are aiming to do something very similarly to Polkadot and Tezos, where you have this sort of self-governing system where when you make a decision within the smart contract network, you can actually automatically enforce it, right? Let's say you change a variable to something in the network, then you can actually enforce it. We're going to talk more about that in the near future. When it comes to layer one on IOTA, I think that is more tricky because we do not have smart contracts there. And the ultimate consensus there is that nodes are upgrading to the new software. So the way that we are handling governance there right now is really more on the human level, where it's about having a clearly defined RFC process, right? So if you want to make an update to the node software, or let's say you want to propose a change to the protocol, you have to write an RFC, request for comments. You have to argue why this is needed, why this is better. You have to implement it. You do the pull request. It gets through the review process of the core developers, ultimately of the IOTA Foundation, because we are currently developing the node software. and also the protocol. And then it gets into the node software, scheduled for release, and then it gets released, and the nodes have to update to this new software. And that is basically it, right? On the sort of protocol level, where developers are able to propose changes. It's similarly to how Ethereum does it with their EIPs, right? Improvement proposals. And that is something that we are doing. But obviously more exciting is really, how can we do this on the protocol layer? A very interesting question is like, how does governance in these decentralized systems actually look like? If you look at MakerDAO, even some of their most important proposals, like for example, I think it was a proposal to increase the collateral that is required to issue stablecoins. Even for some of those proposals, they were only able to achieve about 4 or 5% participation. That means out of 100%, right, token holders, right, stake, only 5% participated. And that really begs the question, is that, first of all, representative of the network? And the other question is, does decentralized governance really work? It's still in the early research phase. Everything that is being done by Bitcoin, how does governance work in Bitcoin, right? I don't know. It's probably also just like the core developers. Cardano, I don't know how Cardano does it. Polkadot, where they're doing it with their own governance system. All of that is very exciting research right now. And we, as the IOTA Foundation, we are right now observing all of these developments around governance. And then I think we can come up with a very sound approach on how this could look like for smart contracts and obviously on the layer one. But to answer your question right now, we're really more focused on the RFC side right now, where people bring up proposals and then they're being discussed by humans. And we are part of the Eclipse Foundation. We are part of the Linux Foundation. It's more of this traditional governance. When it comes to the decentralized governance, we are exploring that right now, how it could look like. 2 questions. By the way, one thing you could probably do is you could probably combine this with mana somehow. But then the self-enforcing part is the interesting one. I'm not the expert here. 2 questions. In how far is privacy a topic? Are there any native solutions which will be implemented into the IOTA protocol, or will it be possible to run something like a privacy sidechain on top of the Tangle, for example, with zero knowledge proof or Mimblewimble? Random question. What happened with Mimblewimble? First of all, the name is kind of absurd, but I remember in 2017, right, or 2018, losing track of time. It came out and everybody was super hyped about it, talking about how it's the latest thing. Litecoin made this official decision that they're doing Mimblewimble. The price jumped up 20%. Ultimately, nothing happened. So is it still around? Has it actually been implemented successfully? Because I remember there were some security concerns with it as well. If there's something being tainted as the holy grail or sub-second, whatever, it's usually not true. When it comes to privacy sidechains, with smart contracts, we are going to actually have the ability to actually have private blockchains. Right, so you can actually have a blockchain without the ability for others to see your data, while still having it secured by layer 1. So that's super exciting, because basically you can have a permissioned network where only specific individuals with the rights can actually see what's happening there. When it comes to privacy on layer 1, I don't think that we're going to, at least we have nothing on the roadmap right now. I think what we can look at is how we can do privacy on layer 2 with mixing and stuff like that. But on layer 1, because zero knowledge proofs are not really that efficient right now, and they have high requirements and as such are not really fit for IoT, we're not looking at that right now. We are looking at zero knowledge proofs, just so you know. We're doing that together with some of the researchers that we're working with, and we're primarily doing that for smart contracts and also for digital identity. But on the base protocol, we're not looking at anything right now. If in the future there's some very exciting novel technology, we're going to adopt it, right? Because privacy is a very important topic, and privacy should be enabled, but there's no really good solution to it right now. Now, maybe I'll do one more question. This one is a long one. Hey, Dom, really impressed with the difference in everything you guys have done. It has convinced me to almost 10x my supply in the last couple of months, even after losing it all in 2018. I'm a true believer. Welcome to the roller coaster. But yeah, exciting times. For those of us that plan, let me drink some water. For those of us that plan to hold tokens for the long haul, can you explain more on how the long-term token economics are envisioned to play out? Meaning, will it even be affordable at the fair market value once main adoption occurs for others to join and develop their new use cases? Assuming multiple trillion-dollar market cap, I can see why companies see the current financial opportunity in IOTA, but in the future, when tokens cost $300, $500, $1,000 per IOTA, would companies be hesitant to buy into the network at those prices? I mean, ultimately, it's a good question, and it's a luxury problem to have that the price is at $300, $500, or $1,000. It is something that we have to consider because we are going into this with ambitious plans. I think what we as a protocol should focus on is how we can provide this flexibility to the ecosystem to really utilize the base layer. And there's different ways that you can utilize IOTA with courteside. Either you hold IOTA tokens and you generate mana, or the second option is you acquire mana through a marketplace or something else. Ultimately, there will always be a price point at which it makes sense to participate. And we want the growth of the network to be driven by real adoption, right? Real use cases, real value transfers between machines and all of that, and less driven by speculation. So the way that you can think about the progression of all of these cryptocurrencies is that over the next few decades, or over the next decade, speculation will have less influence than adoption. And adoption is what's going to drive us towards this target of $300, $500, $1,000. Not the other way around, because if it's just purely based on speculation, it's not sustainable. And I really think that companies in the future will be able to acquire these tokens because first of all, you require less because we're making the protocol more efficient. We are doing sharding and all of that. So I would really not be worried about that problem right now, because the way that we are working is we have this new upgrade coming with Chrysalis and then with Courteside, where the focus is on fully decentralizing the ledger, the network, and then also actually doing that with Mana, and then after that working on sharding. So I really don't think that this is such a realistic problem, I would say. And if not, we're always going to find a solution. Also want to know your opinion on Bitcoin's new DID layer, ION, by Microsoft. What do you think about DID layer built on top of BTC? Is it a good idea? Here are your links you can refer to. We've been involved in DID since the very, very early days. And we also introduced some exciting concepts back even before IOTA. And we actually know the people at Microsoft that developed this. I don't think it makes sense to do it on top of Bitcoin. Conceptually, it makes sense, right? You argue that Bitcoin is the most secure chain because of all the hashing power that is behind it. But I really don't think that Bitcoin is something that you want to build on, because it's not something, first of all, that is leading the innovation race. You do not have a reliable base layer to build on, because what is the governance of Bitcoin? Ask yourself the question. Nobody can answer that. And the main value proposition of Bitcoin is to be this safe asset that is not where the protocol is not fundamentally changing constantly. So as such, is also not future-proofing itself. So the value proposition of Bitcoin is to always stay the same. They don't have an incentive to change. And as such, I would, as an application developer, I wouldn't want to build on top of Bitcoin. First of all, because of the transaction fees, right? It still costs an absurd amount of money to transfer around Bitcoins. And so if you want to secure an identity on top of Bitcoin in one transaction, it's going to cost you a couple of dollars, if not more. And as such, that's really not sustainable. It's like that's really not viable as a business model as well. Unless you're really going to bootstrap all of this and pay millions of dollars to this, I don't think it's sustainable. And I think Jelle from our team gave a very great explanation on the difference between our DID solution and Bitcoin and the Ion solution of Microsoft. So yeah, I really don't think you can compare ours with theirs. It's very exciting that they're doing this, by the way. It shows the commitment of Microsoft also to this entire space. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be adopted. I don't think it really solves the problems that we wanted to solve, and it's not going to be sustainable in the end to build these applications on top of Bitcoin. The only application of Bitcoin right now is as this supposed store of value, I would say. Other than that, I wouldn't build anything on top of it. Let me do one more question. The higher the market cap, the safer the asset. Interesting question. People and companies who buy in now can manage the risk, and people and companies who buy in when the price is in 3-4 digits range are more conservative and probably looking for a safe haven to diversify. Oh, I think that's actually an answer to this. Got it. I wouldn't say that the higher the market cap, the safer the asset. I think all of the market caps right now are driven by speculation. Some of them to absurd amounts. So sure, you can argue that Bitcoin is safer than other cryptocurrencies that use proof of work, but ultimately, I don't think it's something that I would want to build on. News on Ubirch and IOTA? No, not right now. We're gonna hear something from them in the near future. Ultimately, because they are limited by contractual agreements with the government, they really can't communicate. And it's a very sensitive topic, and we as IOTA, we do not want to be involved in that. So it's really up to them to decide what and how they want to communicate it. But we'll see, right? Everything is still open. So yeah, we're 15 minutes overtime. I think we got a really good session. I really like it more where we also show you guys something here, so we can also make it more interactive. If you're not part of the most intelligent on average community yet, join us on Discord and discord.iota.org. Make sure to subscribe and to like. And I'm gonna see you guys on Friday, where we're gonna talk about this week, where we're gonna talk about Firefly, and where we're gonna talk about the upcoming releases, because it is 3 weeks to Chrysalis. So I think it's 3 weeks to really get excited about and to think about and to discuss the future together with all of you. Without further ado, have a good Wednesday and see you guys soon. Bye-bye.